Good evening. My name is Martina Gliber. I work at Fondation Merieux. It's a French family foundation, independent foundation. And I would like to thank very much the organizers for allowing me to give a very short presentation about an initiative on entities that we launched together with other European foundations. So just a few words about our foundation. The mission of the foundation is to strengthen local capacities in developing countries in order to reduce the impact of infectious diseases on vulnerable populations. So what are we doing? We are implementing collaborative research programs and strengthening research capacities. We are setting up international networks, either research networks or also networks of laboratories. We are doing a huge component of training and knowledge sharing, including conferences that we organize in France, but also internationally, and training programs. We are building laboratories, especially BSL-3, and also some experience in BSL-4 laboratories, and quality assurance programs in these labs. And we are also doing a bit of policy and advocacy work in these domains. Where are we working? We are mainly working in French-speaking countries, in West Africa, for example, in Southeast Asia, but also now in Haiti, in Madagascar, in Brazil, in China, in Tajikistan, in Lebanon. So quite on all continents. So now this is the initiative I wanted to talk to you. It's called European Foundation Initiative for African Research into Neglected Tropical Diseases. And my colleague from Gulbenkian Foundation mentioned shortly this initiative already this morning to you. So we are 5 foundations who came up together in 2008 in order to set up a capacity building program for African researchers. And the idea was to set up a postdoctoral training program, including some capacity building activities like summer schools, not only in the domain of research, but also some soft skill training in order how to publish results, how to get access to funding, because that's a big problem for African researchers also, not only for us here. And during these 5 years, we spent all together, these different foundations, so Volkswagen, Cariplo, Gulbenkian, Nuffield, and Merieux, around 4.5 million euros. And we trained more than 30 postdoctoral fellows in Africa that were doing their research programs in Africa at an African research institution. So the idea was not to bring them to Europe or elsewhere, but really to train the people locally and also to avoid brain drain by doing so. These 30 postdoctorals have from that date on published 37 publications in peer-reviewed journals. We have seen an impact on health policies with the results coming out from these fellows. There was also an impact on infrastructure in Africa, infrastructure development and equipment, because the fellowships allowed them also to invest in their local infrastructure for doing their research project. And they were able, with the training we offered to them, to raise additional money for additional research projects for their team. That was quite significant, around 5 million euros. So we have the feeling that we really built research leaders in Africa who can now influence the policy and have the capacity building, also capacity to build and to train others in Africa. You saw that around 60 PhD and master students were trained within this postdoctoral fellowship program. So we were able to reach much more researchers in Africa than the 30 directly trained within the program. So we had the feeling as European foundations that our mission is not to set up a long-term program. We only wanted to train initially people, 30 people, and the quality was quite high until now. And from the last calls, we saw that the quality was a bit decreasing. So our idea was to stop now with the training of the fellowships. There are also other institutions that continue to provide now fellowship programs for entities. There's the Gates Foundation, there's EDCTP, there is TDR. And what we as European foundations offered to the fellows was to say, please suggest us a kind of, how should we support you now? We funded these 30 postdoctorals. How can we support you for the future in order to be able to set up a network that can continue to provide support to Africa and to research capacity strengthening in Africa? And so there was an evaluation done that is published in PLOS NTD, organized by the European Fellows, and they analyzed the results of the fellowship program, and they also did a brainstorming about what should be done for their capacity building now in the future. And what came out of this is the idea of the creation of an African network for neglected tropical diseases, with the objective being to empower current and future generation of African researchers to support evidence-based control and elimination of neglected tropical diseases. So what they found is there's a real need for setting up a sustainable collaborative network for African researchers on NTDs, and not only between researchers, but also involving decision makers, involving industry, involving NGOs and other stakeholders, in order to think what are really the African-led research needs, and how can we work together in order to do together research projects on NTDs. The other need identified was really a need for doing in a coherent and harmonized way advocacy and resource mobilization, but not only internationally, but also in Africa, to do advocacy with the African governments for getting also some local money. They said these diseases are really diseases that are affecting Africa, and there is no reason why African governments should not also try to contribute in a certain way. It could also be some in-kind contributions or other contributions, but there should be a contribution from our countries. That's at least what they wish to do. They also would like to continue to stimulate and strengthen NTD capacity building. And they say now we are trained, we are now good researchers, and we can now also offer some mentorship programs that are really needed in Africa, and train PhDs, master students, and so on in the future. And last but not least, there is a need, that's what they expressed at least, for dissemination of evidence-based research results. And not only dissemination in peer-reviewed journals, but what they saw is there is a problem between the research results and the contact with decision makers and NTD programs and so on, but really try to establish the links with local decision makers so that the research results can directly influence into policy decision making. And this should also be done in a coherent way, and they need some support for doing so. And that's why they had the idea of the African Research Network on NTDs. And as with the 5 foundations, we agreed to provide some seed money, €500,000, in order to get that running. But as you see, the objectives are quite ambitious and need more support. So they are looking for additional funding, and we are organizing, not we, but the fellows are organizing next month in Hamburg, kind of a brainstorming meeting where they invited also fellows from other funding initiatives. There are fellows invited from the Gates Foundation, from the Wellcome Trust, from TDR, in order to bring all these fellows from the different initiatives together and to really think about the next steps about the establishment of this African NTD network. And for those of you who are interested in the initiative or who would like maybe join us even there, that is possible, and I invite you just to contact me. and I would be happy to establish the contact with the African researchers involved in this initiative. So thank you very much.